Have you ever seen a stock price just take off and thought, wow, what's going on there?
Happens all the time, right?
It does.
Makes you want to look a little closer.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're doing today with Rheinmetall AG, ticker symbol RHM.
On the Frankfurt Exchange.
Yeah, and as of March 28th, 2025, it was sitting at a cool 3,110 euros.
Per share.
Per share.
That's a pretty big number.
Yeah, and that's a huge jump, like 156% over the last year.
Over the past 52 weeks.
Yeah, so for a German company...
In the defense and aerospace industry.
That's something.
It is. A lot of people taking notice.
Yeah.
So Rheinmetall, when you dig into it, they're kind of a powerhouse in both the mobility and security tech spaces.
Yeah.
And they actually operate across 5 different segments.
5 different segments.
Vehicle systems, weapon and ammunition, electronic solutions, sensors and actuators, and materials and trade.
So we're talking about everything from...
military vehicles to, like, little components that are probably in your car right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty fascinating.
And you, our listener, you came prepared.
Yes, you did.
With a ton of information.
Detailed overviews of the company, numbers on the workforce, all the important financial figures, and some really smart research.
Yeah, and today our job is to take all of that.
Distill it down,
and pull out the key insights.
The good stuff.
The good stuff, yeah, so that we can really understand Rheinmetall.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's get started.
Let's dive in.
Chapter 1.
Business understanding.
Business understanding. So at its core, what is Rheinmetall?
So at its heart, it's a diversified technology group.
Right.
It's playing a really big part in both the defense and the automotive industry.
So it's not just...
tanks and guns.
Yeah.
They're also a big supplier to car companies.
Okay, so where do they get their money from?
Primarily 2 main sources.
Okay.
One is the defense business.
Right.
They provide military hardware,
Yeah.
solutions to governments and armed forces all over the world.
Makes sense.
And then their second area is the automotive side. Okay.
They operate under the Pierburg and Kolbenschmidt brands,
Sure.
which are well established, and they supply big car manufacturers with components
Yeah.
for emission control
Okay.
and electric mobility,
Yeah.
which is a growing market.
Yeah.
So they're kind of in both worlds there.
Interesting. So in fiscal year 2024, their defense sales.
Saw a huge jump, like 50%.
50%. Wow.
Yeah, that's a big shift. It really highlights how current events are impacting different parts of their business.
So are they becoming more of a defense company?
It seems like they might be becoming less reliant on the automotive industry and more focused on, well, the demand created by geopolitical instability.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but it's also worth noting that both sides of their business, both defense and automotive,
Okay.
benefit from service and maintenance contracts.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit more consistent income. It's not all just one-off sales.
Right.
Now, if we look at their defense offerings specifically,
Yeah.
it's pretty impressive.
Okay.
We're talking armored vehicles.
Like the Panther KF-51, which is tracked,
Okay.
wheeled platforms, weapon systems, ammunition system,
Yes.
air defense solutions,
Wow.
CBRN protection,
What's a CBRN?
chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear protection.
Okay.
A very important but often overlooked part of defense.
Makes sense.
Electronic solutions, so command and control, reconnaissance, fire control,
Okay.
soldier systems. They even have naval technology.
So they're a real one-stop shop.
Yeah, if you need military equipment, they probably have it.
Now, on the automotive side.
A little less exciting, maybe,
Yeah.
but still very important.
Yeah.
They make actuators,
Okay.
plane bearings, different types of pumps,
Mm-hmm.
coolant, oil, vacuum, fuel,
Okay.
precision castings, solenoid valves, exhaust gas recirculation systems, throttle valves, intake manifolds, and sensors of all kinds.
All the stuff I don't understand.
The stuff that makes your car actually run.
Yeah, okay.
And Rheinmetall is a key supplier for all of that.
So they're not just a German company.
No, they have a global presence.
They do.
They operate in Europe, North America, and Asia.
Okay.
They're a big company.
So how big are they?
They're the largest arms manufacturer in Germany
Okay.
and the 5th largest in Europe.
Wow. That's got to give them some leverage.
Yeah, when you're that big, you have some power in negotiations.
And setting standards, probably, for the industry.
Possibly, yeah. So let's talk numbers.
Market cap as of March 2025, about $61.41 billion.
Billion, wow.
And at the end of fiscal year 2024, they had a record order backlog
Of
55 billion euros.
That's a lot of orders.
A lot of work lined up.
Yeah.
They've also been a member of the DAX index since March 2023.
What's the DAX index?
Germany's leading stock market index. It's like the Dow Jones of Germany.
So they're a big deal in Germany.
They are.
So what's their big selling point?
Their value proposition.
Yeah.
They say they're all about cutting-edge, innovative,
Yeah.
reliable security and mobility solutions.
Okay.
They really emphasize quality. They're proud of their technological expertise.
Yeah. And they're committed to growing profitably.
Okay, so what does that actually mean?
It means they want to make money while also addressing these big global needs.
Your needs for...
Security. We live in a complicated world.
Yeah.
And mobility, people and businesses need to move things around.
Okay, that makes sense.
So they're trying to provide solutions for both of those things.
All right, let's move on.
To Chapter 2.
Chapter 2.
Management evaluation.
Management evaluation. So let's talk about the people running the show.
All right. Well, Armin Paperger is the CEO.
Okay.
And he seems to be a key figure in the company's recent success.
Yeah.
Under his leadership, the management team delivered those record sales, operating profit, and that huge order backlog we talked about.
So investors like what they're seeing.
They do. The growth in their market cap is a good indication of that.
Now, do they actually talk to investors?
They seem to prioritize communication.
No.
They have investor relations programs, regular capital market days,
Yeah.
and an annual general meeting.
So they try to keep people in the loop.
They do. They want to be transparent.
Yeah.
They also talk about their core values, integrity, mutual respect, commitment to ethical standards.
That's good.
It's a good sign when a company is open about those things.
So how are they spending their money?
While they're investing in research and development,
Okay.
both in defense and automotive,
Makes sense.
they're also expanding their defense production capabilities
Okay.
to keep up with that demand.
The demand we talked about.
Exactly.
So they're not just sitting around.
No, they're also making acquisitions like Lock Performance Products,
What's that?
a U.S. company specializing in vehicle solutions.
Okay.
And they took a majority stake in Black GmbH.
I don't know what that is.
Another strategic move, probably to expand their reach.
Makes sense.
Now, for investors who care about dividends,
Yeah.
Rheinmetall has a consistent dividend policy.
What does that mean?
They aim to pay out 30 to 35% of their earnings as dividends. And for fiscal year 2024, they proposed a dividend of 8.1 euros per share,
Per share. Wow.
which is actually a 39% payout ratio.
So they're giving back to the shareholders.
They are. It's a good sign.
So that was chapter 2.
Yeah, moving on.
Chapter 3,
Financial health.
financial health. So let's talk numbers.
All right. As of March 2025,
Yeah.
their market cap was around 56.90 billion euros.
Okay. Big number.
The trailing PE ratio is high, 73.47.
PE. What's that again?
Price to earnings ratio.
Okay, but the forward PE is lower.
Yeah, 44.38.
So what does that tell us?
That the market expects their earnings to grow.
Okay.
Investors are optimistic.
About the future.
Yeah,
Okay, so the price to sales ratio
5.83.
and the price to book ratio.
14.0, pretty high.
So what does that mean?
It means investors are excited about the company,
Okay.
especially because of that growth in the defense sector.
Right. So how much did they actually grow?
Their consolidated sales increased by 36% in fiscal year 2024,
Okay.
9.75 billion euros. Billion.
With the defense segment leading the way at 50% growth.
Yeah, we talked about that.
So their profit margins look good too.
They do.
Operating margin improved to 15.2% in 2024.
Overall.
Yeah, and the defense segment hit 19%.
Wow, and net income.
717 million euros.
So they're making money
They are. And they generated a lot of free cash flow.
in 2024.
Yeah, 988 million euros.
So they have money to invest.
Or to weather any storms that might come up.
Yeah, okay.
So their liquidity and leverage look good too.
Liquidity, that's like how much cash they have.
Yeah, how easily they can pay their bills.
Okay.
Their current ratio is 1.21.
Which means,
They have enough cash to cover their short-term debts.
okay, and leverage.
That's how much debt they have
Okay.
compared to their equity, and their debt-to-equity ratio is 0.54.
So not too much debt.
Pretty conservative,
Okay, and the dividends are going up.
which is a good sign.
Yeah.
They have a conservative financing policy. They want to be sustainable and have enough cash on hand, so they're being responsible.
They are, and one thing that really stood out was their strong operating cash flow in 2024. Why? They said it was partly due to good payment terms from their customers.
So they're managing their money well.
It seems like it.
Now, what about risks? Any red flags?
Well, their Altman Z-score is 2.74.
What's that?
It's a measure of financial distress risk.
Okay.
Anything above 3 is generally considered safe.
So they're close.
They are. It's not a huge red flag, but something to watch.
Okay.
And their Piotrowski F-score is 5.9.
What's that one measure?
Profitability, leverage, liquidity, and operating efficiency.
Okay. So they're not perfect,
Nobody is.
but they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, overall, their financial health looks good.
Okay, so that was a lot of numbers.
It was, but important number.
It is. All right, so let's move on to the second half.
Chapter 4,
Chapter 4,
market sentiment.
market sentiment. So how do people feel about Rheinmetall?
Well, based on that stock price increase we talked about,
Yeah.
I'd say pretty positive.
Yeah. And there was that moment in March 2025?
When their market cap briefly surpassed
A
Volkswagen.
Volkswagen.
Yeah, a
Right.
giant in the auto
A
industry.
big deal.
It is. It shows how much attention Rheinmetall is getting.
And Moody's upgraded their credit rating.
They did. That means they think Rheinmetall is more financially stable.
Okay, and analysts are bullish.
Yeah, Research Hub has a price target of 2,000 euros
Wow.
with a BUY recommendation.
So they think the stock is going to keep going up.
They do.
Okay, and what about the news? Is there anything driving this positive sentiment?
Yeah, they're talking about autonomous mobility solutions.
Okay.
There's strong financial results from last year.
Yeah.
And they completed some big contracts like Land 121 in Australia.
Okay, so a lot of good news.
Yeah, definitely contributing to the positive mood.
So let's move on to
Chapter 5.
Chapter 5,
Ownership structure.
ownership structure. So who owns Rheinmetall?
Well, it looks like about 59.2% of the shares are held by the general public. Institutional investors own about 40.7%,
Okay.
and private companies have a tiny sliver, 0.0237%.
So it's pretty spread out.
It is not one big owner calling the shots.
Yeah, and the top 25 shareholders.
They own about 35.76% altogether.
And who are some of those big players?
BlackRock, Vanguard, UBS Asset Management, Capital Research and Management, a few others,
Okay.
each owning between 2 and 5%.
So those are big institutions.
They are, often with long-term investment strategies.
So they're betting on Rheinmetall for the long haul.
It seems that way.
Okay, what about insiders? Are they buying or selling?
We don't have enough information about that.
Interesting.
More transparency would be helpful.
Yeah. And on the corporate governance side,
There have been some new nominations to the supervisory board.
what's the supervisory board?
They oversee the management and strategy of the company.
Right.
They're there to make sure things are run properly.
And Rheinmetall talks about ESG principles.
They do. They say governance is a key part of that.
What's ESG again?
Environmental, social, and governance factors.
Oh, right.
So governance covers things like the board composition, executive compensation, ethical conduct.
So investors care about that stuff.
They do. It's becoming more and more important.
Okay, so let's move on to
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6.
The risk assessment.
Risk assessment. So we're going to do a SWOT analysis.
Yeah, we'll look at their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Okay, so what are Rheinmetall's strengths?
Well, they have a lot of expertise in both defense and automotive.
Yeah.
They operate globally, they focus on innovation, they can adapt to change, they have a diverse product portfolio.
Okay.
They're gaining market share in the U.S., they're strong in NATO countries, they have a huge order backlog.
It's a lot of strengths.
It is, and they have a good reputation for making reliable defense products.
Okay, so they're not perfect.
No company is.
What are their weaknesses?
Well, the European defense industry is fragmented.
What does that mean?
It's not as unified as some other markets.
Oh.
So it can be harder to standardize and work together.
Yeah.
And managing a big company with two different businesses can be tricky.
Yeah, I bet.
And they're reliant on government defense budgets.
Which can change.
They can, depending on the political and economic climate.
Okay, so what about opportunities? Where can they grow?
Well, NATO countries are spending more on defense.
Yeah.
That's a big opportunity for them.
They could get some big contracts from the U.S.
Yeah, potentially.
Okay.
And there's interest from other countries, like Italy.
Okay.
The demand for ammunition is high right now.
Yeah.
And globally, the demand for security solutions is increasing.
So they're in the right space.
Oh, they are. And they're focusing on autonomous and digital defense technologies.
So they're looking to the future.
They are.
Okay. And finally, threats. What could hurt them?
The global defense market is very competitive.
Yeah, I bet.
There are a lot of big players out there.
Yeah.
And geopolitical instability can be unpredictable.
Yeah. Can it help them or hurt them?
Exactly. Regulations can be complex and they can change.
Yeah, that's always a headache for businesses.
It is. And there's always a risk that big contracts could be delayed or canceled.
Yeah, so that would be a big hit.
It would.
Okay.
Supply chains can be vulnerable.
Yeah, we've seen that recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And cybersecurity is a growing threat.
Especially in the defense industry.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And lastly, political decisions can influence who gets contracts.
So they got to play the game.
They do.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We
Yeah.
have Chapter 7.
Brief conclusion.
Brief conclusion, so what's the takeaway?
Rheinmetall looks like a strong company.
Yeah.
The defense sector is doing well, and they're a big part of that.
Okay.
They have a strong position in Europe, a huge order backlog, and a management team that has delivered growth.
So they're a good investment.
They could be, but it's important to remember the risks.
Yeah, the risks we talked about.
Exactly, and to do your own research.
Yeah.
Don't just take our word for it.
Right, so we've come to the end of our deep dive
We have.
into Rheinmetall AG.
A fascinating company.
It is. And we looked at their business, their management, their financials, the market sentiment, ownership, and the risks they face.
A thorough examination.
It was. And now a final thought for you, our listener.
Considering the current global situation and Rheinmetall's focus on defense,
Yeah.
how do you think their defense and automotive businesses will evolve?
Interesting question.
What will that mean for their innovation and their overall strategy?
That's something to think about.
It is.
So that concludes our deep dive into Rheinmetall AG.
I hope you found it informative.
If you want to explore more companies with us,
And different industries.
be sure to subscribe to the Stock Analytics AI YouTube channel.
You can find all the sources we used in the video description.
Yes, and remember, this analysis is based on information available as of March 29th, 2025.
We used AI to help us synthesize the information.
But this is not financial advice.
You might see stock suggestions in the comments.
But those aren't part of our analysis.
Do your own research.
Thanks for tuning in.
We'll see you next time.